This is 1000 ants in captivity, and in this clip, I'm holding a venomous Mediterranean centipede. So the question is,
This
could
is
a single
suicide
venomous
mission.
centipede survive against an army of 1000 ants, or would the ants slowly bring it down with nothing but numbers? Well, in this video, I'm gonna test that alongside tons of different species to see just how capable ants really are. The problem is, the 1000 Camponotus ants we have don't really like to be filmed under bright light. So we're just gonna have to order a different species of ants. And while this is not going to be cheap, but because I saved on delivery, it actually took a full week for the ants to arrive to my doorstep. Guys, I think the ants are inside of this box. Let's see. Oh yeah, look at that. That's a lot of ants. And if you look close, these are harvester ants, which amazingly are equipped with one of the most painful ant stings in North America and humongous mandibles, meaning the ants will have a big chance of fighting off potential predators.
Oh man, I'm gonna get the copyright.
Well, we're just gonna have to find out. Now, before we can do anything with the 1000 we just bought, the ants are going to need a nest, since there's a bunch of things planned for them going from easy to medium to extremely hard. So let's go ahead and start building the ant nest. And for that, let's just use an aquarium I have laying around, and that we're going to slightly modify.
Okay, Chad, this is better.
I mean drill a hole in the aquarium. Oh yeah, look at that, it turned out perfect. And we're going to use the hole we just drilled to connect the tube to the nest, that later on will be used to let the ants leave the nest for all of the different tasks we have planned. But with the aquarium ready, let's quickly add the sand and press it in so that the ants can freely
when the fuck are you getting this much ants,
it's finally time to release the 1000 harvester ants
how the fuck are you seeing this shit, bro?
Though everything seemed normal at the moment, we were oblivious to the fact that
we
completely forgot to prep the walls of the nest, and within moments we had a disastrous amount of ants escaping, so we had to fix this very carefully and very fast. Since having a bunch of very venomous ants roaming the room was a terrible thing, so all we could do is paint the wall with baking powder and pray none of the ants escaped far. Luckily for us, the crisis was successfully averted, and none of the ants escaped. So next up, all we had to do was wait for the ants to start building their nest, which they began to do immediately. So now that we have the ants actually digging up the nest, we're gonna have to give them some water so that they don't dehydrate. Because for the next couple of days, all the ants will be doing is hard labor. Since if you look close enough, the ants move tiny bits of the sand one piece at a time. A process that is definitely tiring and time-consuming. But ants are fascinating creatures. Within just a day or two, they had completely transformed the aquarium into an intricate network of tunnels with massive underground chambers, all by working together as a perfectly coordinated team. And they moved so much sand that they ended up burying the water tube.
I wanna see the centipede, bro. What are you waiting for?
The ants are finally ready for their first challenge, taking on the Venus flytrap.
If y'all want to make me, if y'all want me to react to a new video,
look harmless at first
just
glance,
make sure you
but it has
post them on
evolved into
Discord.
one of nature's most efficient killers. Hidden inside are tiny trigger hairs, and the moment anything touches them, the trap rapidly closes and starts digesting the insect, eventually leaving behind nothing but an empty shell to be carried away by the wind. So why on earth are we putting the ants through this? Well, the goal is simple: train them to recognize and avoid danger. Since finding the centipede, well, that's not gonna be easy, and they're gonna need all the training they can get. So we began by placing some seeds, and their mission is going to be carefully retrieving the seed and carrying it safely back to the nest. So can they do this? Well, let's find out. Here you can see the very first explorer ant setting off to investigate the brand new world we had just built for the colony. And within moments, he had already wandered over to the Venus flytraps to check them out. But somehow he completely avoided the dangerous plant and just kept exploring like nothing was there, while more and more ants were starting to reach the challenge through the entrance. And just like that, we had our first two explorers, Beep and Bob, start the challenge. Suddenly, Beep noticed a seed inside the flytrap, but he had no idea he was already making a fatal mistake.
Oh my god!
For Beep, he became nutrients for the planet, while most of the hopefully learned from his mistake. Shortly after that, we had another ant interested in the Venus flytrap. But the thing is, this flytrap was empty, and what the ant was actually interested in is the nectar that the Venus flytrap produces to attract insects. However, it seems the ants were learning a thing or two, and he left the trap safely.
He didn't do it! He didn't do it!
The rest the ants. And as time was flowing, the ants were starting to get comfortable around the Venus flytraps, which only meant it was a matter of time before these ants succeed. But then we spotted one of the bravest ants yet, casually walking all over the flytraps. Either he was fearless or he had absolutely no idea how dangerous the plant actually was. And finally, the moment we've all been waiting for, the ant was actually trying to pick up the seed. Okay.
Need a new phone, laptop, earbuds, chargers, power
bank. Laptop, earbuds, shut the fuck up.
It's on Jumia. Sneakers.
I know this one.
When we've all been waiting for, the ant was actually trying to pick up the seed. Okay. Maybe we had made this challenge a little too difficult. Every time an ant tried to grab the seed, it would brush against the trigger hairs, causing the trap to snap shut and turn the unfortunate ant into nutrients. And trust me, we were ready to give up and move on to the next challenge. But something about this flytrap was different. Sure enough, only a few moments after setting up the camera, another ant climbed inside to inspect the seed. Somehow, despite walking all over the trap, it managed to avoid triggering it. Struggling to get a good grip, the ant finally picked up the seed and walked right out of the flytrap without a single scratch. It immediately raced through the tube all the way back to the nest, completing the very first challenge for the entire colony, earning everyone a well-deserved reward. Which means we can now move on to the next challenge, the tightrope of Zeus. Yep, that's right, the second challenge is this thing. The ants will have to walk across this extremely narrow tightrope over a lake of acidic water. Yeah, no,
this is easy,
that
bro.
would probably be illegal. It's just normal water. However, if the ants do manage to fall, they will end up swimming in this lake, which could result in them drowning. But ants are known to be good swimmers that can even build floating rafts just to survive a flood. So this challenge was going to be very interesting. And once you complete it, all the ants have to do is just walk over the thread like it's just another Monday, grab a seed of their choice, and walk all the way back to the ants' nest. So can they complete this challenge? Well, let's find out. But before we get to that, if you're watching this video in the first couple of months of its release,
make sure you
still have a chance to subscribe before we hit 1 million subscribers. You see, ever since we were kids, my cousin and I have always dreamed of doing this together. So if you want to help us in making our childhood dreams come true, please consider subscribing.
Shout out to Frogmate.
Now back to our second challenge. We already had our first ant roaming around the starting point, and its very first objective was simple: find the thread, which I'm assuming shouldn't take that long since there's nothing else on the platform. But nonetheless, ants were starting to enter the second training camp, and I was interested to see if the ants can actually follow the thread. That's still something we're gonna have to discover, because for some reason the ants were just completely ignoring the thread. Not only that, but one of them actually managed to fall into the water in the first couple of minutes of this challenge. And what's interesting is that the ant isn't actually drowning. If you look close enough, you can actually see that the ant is trying to swim. But considering these are my pets, I decided to help out the ant by pulling it out of the water. And then my cousin was trying to show the ant where to go, but the ant had different plans and it just jumped back into the water. But not to worry, Baloney was the chosen one. He immediately figured out where to go, and just like that, the chosen one failed. Honestly, we had no idea why the ants were struggling that much to find the thread until we stumbled across something very interesting. As it turns out, ants don't actually have perfect vision. In fact, they see the world very blurry, relying mostly on movement and changes in light to navigate. So with that in mind, we helped the colony learn exactly where the thread was. And just like that, the ant understood where to go. Slowly but surely, it was making progress. Carefully walking all over the water. And honestly, this was amazing to watch in real life. I mean, to see the ant finally reach the other side was great. So now the easy part was officially over, and next up came the real challenge. The ant had to grab a seed and take it back home, which on paper sounds easy, but who knows what's going on inside of that tiny brain. However, the longer we watched, the more it seemed like the ant was carefully picking the perfect seed. So we waited, just carefully watching, and yeah, it left. But moments later, the ant was back, and this time it was most definitely choosing the right seed. But before taking it back, ants don't have perfect vision. Well, that's because their antennae are their most important. However, it decided to leave without grabbing anything, but instead it was so pressed. So at that point, I was certain that then it finally happened. One of the ants picked up a piece of food and began carrying it back home. And although it got a bit lost in the way, it still managed to find the right path back to the thread. And since this was a special little ant, we named him Michael. And Michael's task was not easy. It seemed like he was struggling to keep his balance because the piece of food he was carrying wasn't tight. And despite getting so close to the finish line, Michael still had to fight his way through, forcing every bit of strength he had to keep moving forward. Nonetheless, he pulled through and completed the challenge like an absolute champion, earning the colony some extra food, but also bringing the ants one step closer to being ready for the final boss, Centipede. However, before they can face their final opponent, there was one more challenge left, and that of course is 1,000 mealworms. Yep, we definitely counted them.
Bro, I got a
there's gonna
question,
be
bro.
a time
How the
limit
fuck
and
are
a
you getting
special
this shit,
arena
bro?
for the ants to fight in.
How do you
I'll
see
explain
this
a bit
shit,
more
bro?
while we drop all 1,000
How the fuck are you
mealworms into
getting
this
this shit?
enclosure.
This is
And what
fuck.
we wanted to see is if the ants can actually hunt down their
Fight,
own prey.
fight,
Since up
fight.
until this point, we've been training the ants to do everything else except hunting. So for this challenge,
Oh my god, stop with the ads!
No, no swing again.
Stop with the ads, y'all, bro. Stop this shit, bro. Oh, Timu. Maybe I should just order a PC from Timu. Yeah, I guess so. I'm gonna order a PC from Timu. Now my Wi-Fi is strong. My Wi-Fi is strong.
You sure?
Yeah,
Wait, what's of your own?
my Wi-Fi. Please don't do this to me. Let me to check. Let me to check the window. Let me to check the window if the window is open. Let me to check the window if it's open. Oh my god, bro.
This window is open.
Parlor window.
Okay.
So what the hell is wrong with my Wi-Fi, bro? This is the yo. This is slow.
immediately they
Oh my
started
God.
attacking anything that was
This
moving.
man.
Probably scare anyone.
Mine.
The
Imagine
ants
I lay in
didn't
this
run.
place.
In fact, the ones trying to escape
For 1
were the
million.
mealworms. And
Yo,
they were
Mr.
doing so
B,
while being bitten
I got a
and
plan
stung
for
by
you,
the
bro.
ants. And
I'm gonna
slowly,
lay
a giant
in
pile
this
of
ant
worms started to
zone,
spread
ant
out, making
territory,
it
whatever
even
y'all call
easier
it.
for the
I'm gonna
ants
lay
to
in this shit for
surround
life.
them. But even the mealworms that were still together
I think
didn't
10
stand much
minutes.
of a chance.
I'm
The
gonna
ants
win
were
$1 million.
literally just walking all
I'm
over them
literally
like this
telling
was
you
not even a threat.
to
And after
create challenge
just
for
a
me.
few minutes
Yeah,
of
$1 million.
walking, I finally noticed the first
Bro, if
mealworm
you
that had
in, I'm in,
actually
bro.
been injured. You can see some of the
GG.
white fluid leaking from its body. This is actually
in, bro.
hemolymph, which is basically the insect equivalent of blood. So every ant attacking a mealworm would eventually penetrate the skin and injure it. But I noticed something else. Even the worms that were in the middle of transforming into pupae weren't being ignored. And one of the ants was repeatedly stinging it, trying to immobilize it. But for some weird reason, the venom was not working on the mealworm. Not only that, some even managed to escape the danger and were just wandering around the arena. Psych!
Yo,
Psych!
yo,
The
yeah,
ants
for
were not
real.
about
Ant
to let
3-1,
anyone
bro.
escape. And that's where things got even more interesting. The ants started
Ant
trying
won.
to pick up the mealworms and maybe carry them back to the nest, which honestly I found very hard to believe that this was even possible. I mean, a full mealworm is so much bigger than a single ant, so I think a single ant would really struggle to move a mealworm on its
These
own.
ants are really
But little
strong,
did I
bro.
know,
They're
ants are capable of carrying objects many times heavier than their own bodies, so maybe, just
Wait, how is
maybe,
this shit
this could
possible,
be
bro?
possible, especially since there were other ants coming in to help,
So
giving them an
you're
even
trying to say
better
that
chance
an
of
ant can
success.
kill
But the
an
mealworm
elephant,
wasn't
bro?
about to give up. It kept
The ant can
struggling
kill
and
an
wiggling
elephant.
around, because for it, this wasn't just a challenge, it was a matter of survival.
Yeah,
And if it
probably.
kept
I
fighting
guess.
hard
I
enough,
guess an ant can
maybe
kill an
the
elephant,
ants
bro.
would just give up. However, for this mealworm, this wasn't the case. The ant had a mission, bring back the feast to the nest. And no matter how slippery the tube was, the ant wasn't giving up. It kept
Whoa.
slipping and falling and getting back on track to feed the colony.
This is
No
what
matter
I'm
how hard
saying,
it
Jack.
tried, it
This is what I'm saying, bro. This is what I'm saying, chat. No matter how, no matter how you fail, you gotta keep getting up, chat. No matter how you fail, you just gotta keep going. You just gotta keep moving, bro. You gotta keep going, bro. No matter how you fall down, you gotta make sure you stand up. Stop being a weak ass nigga. Gotta stand up, nigga. This is my face. Look at my face, man. I'm speaking to you with my ears, bro. I'm literally speaking to you with my ears. You can hear me with your mouth. You just gotta get out the stream. No matter how far you've come, when you fall down, you just gotta make sure you get back up. You gotta learn to see from the ant, bro.
Well, again and again and again. But then something changed in the way it was gripping the mealworm, and this was the first time the ants were so close to completing the mission. With only 17 minutes left on the clock, the ants started working as a team, and at this point I was very interested to see what would happen with the mealworm that is still alive, by the way, in the middle of the nest full of ants. And as expected, they gave it no chance, but the mealworm fought with every last ounce of strength it had until eventually it disappeared into the darkness of the sand. But the ants
Bro, I wanna
still
see
had
an
15 minutes
instant
left
view
on
of
the
the house,
clock,
bro.
and they were not
You should
slowing
just get
down.
an
They
instant view,
continued
like
bringing
check it,
mealworm
little
after
webcam,
mealworm after
onto the
mealworm
ants
working as a team,
eye
giving
or
us
head.
the ultimate
What do I
answer
say?
that
I
they
don't
were
know.
ready for the centipede. And as the timer struck 0, the ants pulled the last mealworm. So their training was now complete. They had learned to recognize
Bro,
danger,
this
they had proven their
y'all need
agility,
to
and they
work
had shown
together, bro.
us just how well they could work
You guys
together
will
as a
need to
colony.
work
So
together
without
to win
wasting any more
centipede, bro.
time, they were ready for the boss centipede.
Oh,
And we decided to give them yet another arena specifically for this fight. And as you can
Wow.
see, the ants are already familiar with the terrain.
Yo, how many odds y'all need to show me?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have a really busy weekend. I gotta get on Tangle, like right
Get the
now.
fuck on my screen. Don't give a shit about your tangle.
With the terrain, and there's a bunch of them just roaming around waiting for food, but they still have the freedom to leave
Child,
the
why the fuck
arena
am I
at any
feeling
given
sleepy,
moment.
bro?
So if the ants will fight the centipede,
I
that
literally
is
been
by
feeling
choice,
sleepy
and that is
lately,
because
bro.
this fight will be very, very hard. But forget all of that. Look at the centipede, guys. Yeah,
Oh, shit.
that is actually scary. I shouldn't be holding this. And the reason it's scary is because the centipede is venomous, meaning it's designed to cause intense pain. And we're going to be
What?
releasing it into
Bro, I thought you said
1,000 ants to
venomous,
see
bro.
how exactly
Oh,
they
yeah,
will deal
venomous.
with such a dangerous arthropod. And there you go. The fight
Bro,
begins
cover the
right
shit,
now
bro.
with the centipede running
Cover
all
the
over the
shit, bro.
place like a crazy
You gotta cover the
maniac.
top
But
of
we
the
were
shit,
training
bro.
the ants exactly
you
for
can't
this moment. And although it looks like the centipede is just trying to run away, if you look close enough, the ants are already swarming it, and the centipede is starting to slow down. However,
Oh
that
my
doesn't
God,
mean
bro.
it will not fight back.
You gotta
because
keep
at the
going,
moment,
bro.
it's just
Keep
searching for a way
going.
to avoid fighting, whereas the ants are already trying to deal damage. And by the looks of
Oh my
it, they're
God,
kind of
bro.
succeeding. And we can see that there's
I
a
think the
bunch of
ants are
ants
winning,
attacking
bro.
it
The
at the
ants are
same
winning.
time. There's at least 30 right now climbing on it, biting it, and stinging it. So if the centipede
Oh,
doesn't
shit.
change its strategy,
Shit, bro, I'm
it's
feeling
going to
weird, bro.
lose. And when I actually started to feel
Yo,
bad for
imagine
it,
someone
it
just locked
struck
me up in
back.
this
And
place.
yeah, what you're seeing over there is venom being injected
Oh my God,
into
I'm
the
dead.
ant, which means it's definitely going to die. And up until this moment, we really wanted the ants to succeed. But the longer we observed the centipede, the more we understood the mistake we made. The centipede
Oh,
was
the
killing off our
centipede.
pet ants one by one, and no matter how many ants were swarming it, it felt like they didn't do any damage. Whereas every time the centipede striked, we would lose an ant. So we decided enough was enough, pulled the centipede out of the arena, but unfortunately a few of the ants were holding onto it. So at that point, all we could do is watch the centipede annihilate the ants. And honestly, it didn't even take that long before it finished off the final ant. So in the end, the centipede was so much stronger, meaning the ants weren't ready. So next time we'll train them even
No,
better.
chat, the ant lost, bro. No, I thought, bro. On God, bro, you know, like crazy, guys, bro. This shit is not fair, bro. I thought the ant won, bro. You literally just trying to do for them to lose.
It's sad. Oh.
Man, we just lost the soul. We just lost the soul, bro. We lost like 40 ants over there, bro.